Today I will be making my prelim vlog containing Dr. Jose Rizal's life, the biographical sketches of Jose Rizal. When I think of Jose Protasio Rizal y Alonso's biography, I am reminded of how his various personas depended on the individuals he hung around with. So Rizal is a gentle individual with compassion in his heart. He is also a Gemini, which is a twin sign. Rizal's personas illustrates what happens when people start new pursuits but don't pursue them to their full potential. This is true if that I take on new tasks I haven't been finished, which is why other tasks have been produced. And your souls, this is a true if I reflect the character of Jose Rizal. The pragmatic education. Rizal learned a lot about pragmatic education while studying to become an eye surgeon. Since he wanted to operate his own mother's failing eyes, he went to the three clinics, each of which provided him with a unique learning experience. Additionally, he receives no allowance, so he makes savings and washes. He initially traveled to Paris, France, where from November 1885 to February 1886, he served as the main laboratory assistant in Dr. Louis de Reckert's medical practice. Dr. de Reckert made significant contributions to the development of the cataract surgery. After 4 months of residing in the clinic, Rizal acquired the skills necessary for an eye procedure. Between 50 and 10 people visited Dr. Reckert's clinic every day. 10 surgeries or more were carried out on certain days. Rizal had studied art and toured museums in France, while completing his studies to become an eye surgeon. The work of French greats Voltaire, Rousseau, and Montesquieu, who contributed significantly to the formation of modern philosophy, were all read by Rizal. As a result of his homesickness, Rizal, who had heard about Professor Ferdinand Blumentritt, director of Ateneo, who was interested in Philippine languages. He produced the poem Alas Flores de Heidelberg. He received a letter from Rizal and book on mathematics by Rufino Baltazar Hernandez. Rizal and Blumentritt's Nolibi Tangare was a reflection of the flaws in the Philippine culture at the time of the Spanish colonizers' rule. Both the friars and the Filipinos were made fun of. The main source of Rizal's animosity for the friars was the local origin. The friars were the owners of a sizable estate that his father had been living in. There was a vexing legal dispute between the father of Rizal and his landlord. After a few years, Weyler's order, troops demolished the structures on the property and several family members were banished to different islands. Justice and death. In considering that Rizal is a national hero and that his death was surrounded by controversy, his trial is the most well known in the Philippine history. He gave his life to save the Filipino people, not to defend himself or his family. This Rizal trial is an outright farce. He died to defend us. As I've previously said, so it was a gigantic joke from the start. That was so offensive. I felt like throwing up. I'm so outraged by the brutality that I may liken those evil possessed Spanish authorities. At the time, simply put, they were too much for me, and I don't like them in the traditional sense of the word. Those Spaniards irritate me because if they hadn't killed Rizal, I think he would have emancipated our country with his own ends and continued to produce a large body of poetry that still motivate us now. Instead, Rizal was murdered in vain in spite of his denials and demands for a full inquiry in accordance with the law. Rizal was immediately detained and sent to Fort Santiago after being banished to the Pitan in July 1892. He was also kept in the dark about the decree and the charges. When Rizal journeyed to Barcelona, he was detained in the Castle Dongion upon arrival, before settling sail once more for Manila. When Rizal arrives in Singapore, a number of his friends make vain attempts to save him. By securing a habeas corpus, Rizal was unlawfully imprisoned aboard a ship from Singapore, and they did not follow correct legal procedure. Therefore, it is obvious that they planned to execute him. Furthermore, the right of habeas corpus was rejected. He was immediately taken to Fort Santiago after his arrival in Manila and charged with treason, sedition, and the creation of illegal organizations. He should be prosecuted in a military court since, according to the prosecution, he assaulted the Spaniards in his writings and novels. Rizal was a citizen, yet a military court found him guilty without the assistance of the church or any other civilians. They just wanted Rizal to put him to death, and they remained silent because they knew that some people would stand up for Rizal and protest to his trial. Jose Rizal was accused of being one of the organization's founders and put on trial in front of a military tribunal for sedition, insurrection, and conspiracy. At the time of his imprisonment and subsequent return to Manila for his trial, Rizal had already been across the Mediterranean. He was found guilty after the truth of all three accusations was established. He received a death penalty and was sent to the Pitan in 1893. Spanish authorities detained Rizal for, among other things, founding a society disseminating filibusterism and the Philippines possessing a collection of handbills that disobeyed Spanish orders, criticizing the Spanish propagated religion and publishing works that spread seditions, travels, frustrations, and disappointments. After the Noli Me Tangere's release and the ensuing debate among the friars, Rizal's brother Pasiano encouraged him not to go back home in order to treat his mother's eyes and help his people who had been long-term slaves of Spanish. Rizal was adamant on going back to the Philippines, while many in Rizal's birthplace of Calamba celebrated his arrival in Manila in 1887 and looked up to him since he had the opportunity to pursue his education overseas. Others dared not approach him because they believed it would be extremely risky in Calamba. He opened a clinic and a gym right away. Later to his address, his continuous book Noli Me Tangere, Governor General Emilio Terrero requested that Rizal meet with him. Noli Me Tangere angered the friars who were relieved to have Rizal's back.